Saving challenges are getting increasingly popular. Lots of people like the idea of a set amount they have to save every single day, week, month, whatever it is, and end up with what is actually quite a surprising amount of cash at the end. There are lots of positives, and I'll take you through those in a minute, but there are also some things that I'm not so keen on. So I'll also take you through those and maybe some alternative things you might want to do instead that might be better suited to you. But first of all, let's have a look at some of those most popular savings challenges. And what I should say about any of these ones is these are just examples. These are ones that someone out there has kind of gone, hey, let's do it like this. Let's do it like that. You can adapt them. You can change them. You can make them last a longer amount of time or a shorter amount of time. You can increase the value. You can decrease the value. You can start them in January in the new year. You can start them in March. You can start them in September, whatever it is. You can stop it halfway through because you need the money and you can start again. You can put the money in, literally have the money in cash, in coins and notes and put them in jars and envelopes, or you can do it digitally. You can do it within your bank accounts. That works for all of these, but let me give you some of the most popular ones that you might already be aware of, might want to give a go. The first one is, and I think this is the simplest one, this is the £1 savings challenge. As the name suggests, you will save £1 and you will do this every single day. As I said, you can adapt this if you want, but it doesn't take much to realize this one. If you save £1 a day for a year, you will end up with £365 by the end of the year, which actually is quite nice. If you're someone who struggles, you think, how am I going to get £300 in a year's time? For whatever reason it is, well, £1 a day will do the job. So that's the most simple one. I quite like that one. Another one that's quite popular, you see it written about quite a lot, is the 1p savings challenge, or sometimes called the 365-day challenge. Essentially the same thing here, but rather than put £1 away every single day, you put aside a penny on day one, and not a penny on day two, penny day three, because then you'd only end up with £3.65, which is not really worth it, is it? Instead, you increase it. So on day two, it's 2p. On day three, it's 3p, and so on, all the way through until New Year's Eve, where you put in £3.65. The total you end up there is actually more than the £1 challenge. You get £667.95. Even more money, even though it's smaller amounts, stuff you probably wouldn't notice every single day. You won't notice it, but it really will add up. There is another kind of a big one here. This one I'm going to do them through one's earning order, ones you earn more money from. Obviously, that means you have to put aside more money. This one is the 52-week savings challenge. This one is, as the name suggests, rather than every single day, it's every single week you put money aside. And you start off with £1. And then in week two, it's £2 and so on. 52 weeks in the year. That means the last week of the year, it's 52 quid. Adds up to £1,378 over the year. Sometimes people have variations of this with the reverse of that. So you start off with 52 quid and work your way down. So right at the end, you're only putting away 2 quid, 1 quid, like that. So obviously, if you're starting this in the new year, that would mean by the time you get to Christmas, you're putting the most money away. But obviously, you can start this anytime. You can adapt it as you like. There is a version of this called the 26-week challenge. This one, well, you can take this a couple of ways. You end up with the same amount of money, but you can either do it every other week, but increase how much you put away. Or again, you have to increase the money you put aside, but you just do it faster. So you complete it in 26 weeks rather than 52. You end up with nearly £1,400. Now, if you want even more money, you obviously can scale all of these up. Another one you see written about quite a lot is the £5 savings challenge. And this one, every single week you're putting away, not £1 the first week, £5, then £10, then £15, then £20. You end up with £7,000 over a year. But obviously that would mean by the end of the year, you're putting away a huge amount of cash. Now, they're all well and good. They're all kind of ones which are loads of resources out there to kind of show you exactly what you want to do, how much money you need to put aside every day or week or month or whatever it is. There is another option of this, obviously, is you can do what I'm calling a targeted savings challenge. And this is where, very simply, you work out how much you want to save, how much you want to have put aside by the time that period is ended. And that could be a year. That's the most popular way of doing it. But it could be any time you like. And very, very simply, you divide that total that you want to save by the time you want to save it in. And that's how much you need to save. So let's say you want to save on a monthly basis. And let's say you want to have £1,200 left after a year. Very simply, that's £100 every single month you need to put away. And if you wanted to, you could break that down to £25 every single week. Won't technically be quite right there, a little bit off. You have to factor in a little bit more if you do that. But that, again, gives you an example of the way you can set your own savings challenge following those principles of putting money aside every single week or month or day or whatever it is. Now, are these good or bad? Now, what I like about them is that it really does motivate you to save. If you're someone who struggles to get into the savings habit, having something which you are following, you are committing yourself to. This is called a savings challenge. That's the idea of it. It should be a little bit tricky. It should be something you have to commit to. I think that's a good thing. You're really getting you involved in it. That in turn will hopefully make it become a habit, make it a lot easier for you to save just more ad hoc without having to follow all sorts of different instructions and stuff. And what I also like about it is that this is active. You are taking the action. You are doing it yourself. You know exactly where your money is going. You know exactly how much money you've got building up, because hopefully you're sort of tracking it as you go along. All really, really, really good things that might actually make you think again about, do you need to buy something over here, when actually instead it could go over to your savings. You've got a much, much stronger relationship with your savings pot. But there are lots of things I don't like about it. The worst one I think is really that the amounts generally, other than that one where you're doing £1 a day, the amounts change. And that gets a little bit fiddly, a little bit, who wants to go, 6 months in, you're putting aside £1.71 on this day, £1.72. It's really, really, really fiddly. And I don't think that's really practical for most people. You're not going to be doing this. I mentioned before that sometimes these challenges can end up you putting the most amount of money away at one of the most expensive times of the year, particularly if you do start in January as you come around to Christmas. Yes, I mentioned you could do it in reverse or you could flip things around. But again, a big problem with a lot of these is you start off the new year with £1 or a penny and you end up putting much, much more away in a much more expensive month of the year. Obviously, that is only if you do start this in January. As I said, you can start it at any time. You've also kind of got to remember to do this. It's very, very difficult. I say it's great that you're active and you're doing this, but you've got to go, hang on, every single day, I've got to transfer over 32p over here, or I've got to do this. It's not going to be that easy. There's a lot of reasons there where you will give up. You will fail the challenge. And that in itself, I don't think is great, because having a challenge succeeding is brilliant, but having a challenge and failing might just put you back to square one and think, well, I failed. I can't do it. When you can do it in so many ways. And finally, obviously, if you are using cash, I think that's unlikely nowadays. I think most of us will be doing these kind of things digitally. But if you are using cash, in lots of ways, that's fantastic. But it is just sitting there at home. It is losing its value. It's not earning any interest. It's losing value in terms of inflation, all this kind of stuff. There's no protection to that money either as well, if say it was to get lost or whatever. So you've got to be really careful of that if you are using cash. Now, there are some ways that can make it a little bit easier for you. So let's do that first of all, and then I'll go into what some of the alternatives might be, which I actually think might be better suited to you. First of all, you can get printables for this. I mentioned how difficult it is to keep track of what you're doing. There are loads of people out there who are selling, but I wouldn't buy them. You can find online, print them out yourself, and it will tell you, on day 1 is this much, on day 2 is this much. And you basically get a highlighter and you mark it off or circle it or cross it off, whatever it is, each time you move that money across into your physical pot, your bucket, or into your digital account. Also, you can put this somewhere quite prominent so you see it. Now, I don't know about you, I can sometimes get a bit blind to things which are always in the same place every single time. So maybe you want to move it around every week, every month or whatever. 1 week it's on the fridge, another week it's on a cupboard door, whatever it is. But again, you see it, go, right, got to do that, got to take action now. So have a look for one of those principles for any of those different sort of savings challenges I mentioned, or you could create your own if you feel you've got an extra sort of 5-10 minutes to do that. I'm sure a spreadsheet could quickly work out what you need to do on different days. What I like a lot more than that though, is for any of you who have got a Monzo current account. If you haven't got one, it's a very good current account. I've got a whole review of it that you can watch. But this is an app-only bank. There are no branches. There is no phone line you can call up. Just all done through your smartphone. It's free to get. There are different paid versions of Monzo, but you want to get the basic free option there. You can open this account up. And what I love about this is it combines with something called If This Then That. Okay, IFTT. And this will set up some rules based on all sorts of things. I've got a whole video actually. You might want to check this out. It's a really interesting thing. You can do it by, you have a savings challenge based on your location if you want to, or a savings challenge based on the weather, all that kind of stuff. But where it works, the ones we've spoken about so far, is that it will tell you can actually set it, or it might already been set by someone else, really easy to activate, that on day 1, it will move whatever the amount that you specify out of your main account into a separate kind of savings pot within Monzo. And on day 2, it will move the next amount. Again, that could be the same amount if it was the £1 a day challenge, or it could be a slight increment of that. It could be 2p if you're doing that 1p challenge. And it will do it all for you. Nice and easy. And that means that you are getting that money. You are taking part in the savings challenge and it is all building up for you over time. So I think I'm a big fan of this. I think it's a great way of taking part in this and gamifying savings. A couple of downsides obviously to think about here. First one is this automation of it takes away that kind of element which I said was really good, that you've been actively involved in the savings. It's just happening in the background. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but just be aware of it. It takes away some of the advantage of those specific types of savings challenges. And also, if this isn't your main current account, you need to make sure there's enough money in the current account for the savings challenge, the if this then that algorithms to take the money out of it. And you might therefore have to transfer money into Monzo every week, every month, whatever it is, to ensure that happens. In that case, well, you may as well have just transferred some money into a separate savings account. So it's fantastic if you have Monzo and you use Monzo, and I definitely would recommend it as a kind of spending account, a daily account that you use. But maybe it's not going to be as fantastic if you still want to keep your main banking elsewhere. Remember, you don't need to switch into this. You can just open it up as an additional account. So there you go. They are the main savings challenges. But what are the alternatives? And I think these ones might be better for you, might be better suited to all of us to help us build up a nice wedge of cash over time. Very, very, very simply, the first ones I would talk about are AI savings apps, auto savings apps that use artificial intelligence algorithms. It's not like the Terminator or anything like that. It's just some computer, some maths behind the scenes. What they do is you connect them to your current account. They will have a look at your spending, look at your income, all that kind of stuff, and it will calculate based on what happens in an average month, how much you can afford to save and how much of that money you can afford to then take out of your current account and put it in a separate pot, and it will do that for you. It will automatically move that money across. And these can be really good ways to sort of get some cash coming along. You don't have to think about it. It just happens. It just moves over. You have the option to say no and turn it, say don't do it. And you have the option obviously to move that money straight back if you need it. But I think these are great ways to again, slowly build up a decent wedge of cash. The two main places that would do this are Chip and Plum. Chip is currently charging for this, but that will change in mid-January. Okay, so in mid-January, you'll be able to get this on the Chip Lite plan, the free Chip Lite plan. What's also really good about this one is that money can be saved into an instant access savings account paying 0.7%. Again, this can change, it probably will change, but at the moment, that means the money you're moving over is going to be earning you some interest. So that's really, really good one to think about. But again, it's only going to be free from mid-January 2022. The other one that does this is already free. This is Plum. Again, you can move the money from Plum into a separate savings account, which does earn interest, but not as much as Chip. So at the moment, I would say Chip has the edge over Plum. But definitely do check both of those out. In fact, I've got a whole review on Plum that you can look at. Similar to this, a lot of your banking apps or some standalone apps will do something called round up savings or spare change savings. Very, very simple principle here is every time you spend money with your debit card, let's say you spend £2.80 on something. If this option is added on, is turned on, it will go, right, you spent £2.80. Let's round it up. How much would it be to the nearest pound? So £2.80 obviously goes up to £3. So there's 20p, and that 20p will be automatically saved. So it's a small amount of money again. But what's great about this, as long as you are using a debit card, not a credit card, unfortunately, is that this is going to be very, very similar to those kind of initial savings challenges, that 1p one we mentioned. Small amounts of money coming along and adding up very quickly over time. Now, loads of banks will do this. So you can do this with Monzo, Starling, Halifax, Lloyds, Bank of Scotland, Nationwide, TSB if you have their spend and save account, and with Revolut. If your bank doesn't do it, you can have this feature via Plum, which we mentioned before, which is great, and Moneybox does the same thing as well. However, my top pick for this is a bank called Chase. This launched in sort of autumn 2021, and this one has that feature. When you spend with a debit card, money that's left over is transferred to a separate pot. But what's nice about it is that separate pot will earn you 5% interest. So we're not talking about huge amounts of cash here, okay? This is not much you're going to get because depending on how much you use that debit card, and it does have 1% cash back for the first 12 months. So hopefully for the first 12 months, you're using it all the time. But that little round up amount will make a big, big difference if you're earning 5% on top of it than just going into another account earning nothing. The last alternative option, and after this I'll give you an idea of where to put your money, but the last alternative option is just doing it yourself. Something called paying yourself first. Really, really, really simple here, right? Goes back to what I mentioned before. All you need to do is work out how much you can afford to save every single month. When your salary comes in, you work out your bills, your essential money that has to come out of it, right? So let's say £1,000 comes in, let's say £500 goes on rent and bills or whatever. And then you go, right, okay, that gives me £500 left for the rest of the month. Well, of that, I'm going to put 250 quid into savings. Okay, you need to do your own maths, work out what the actual figures are. They're just complete random examples I've given. But you will move after payday, when the money comes in, 250 quid by a standing order, so it moves on the same day every single month, into a separate savings account. And that is probably the best savings challenge you can have out there. It's all automated, you don't have to think about it, although you might want to adjust that value as months go on. You might find some months you need a bit more cash for yourself, or some months you've got more left over so you can save more, but you do it yourself. It all goes across. And by all means, have some of those other ones in the background. Have the spare change one, have the AI savings, maybe have one of the smaller penny savings challenges going on in the background as well, particularly if it's automated via Monzo. Great. All the little extras you can get, fantastic. But by all means, I think the best savings challenge is the one where you just work out how much you can afford to save and you transfer it across. It's the old school version. It's the most easiest one, the most common sense one, but it's one that a lot of people don't do. Now let's talk about where to keep this money. Now every single month I do a video, a savings account update of the best savings accounts, any new ones that come along. So make sure if you haven't already, you hit subscribe and that little notification bell so you see those videos every time they're released. You might want to move your money, you might find a new account comes along, you might find your account, the interest rate has dropped. Those updates are really vital to help you keep on top and make sure it's in the best place. So those videos will take you through the individual accounts. But fundamentally, this is where you should be looking to keep your money. As I said earlier on, don't keep it in cash if you're doing a savings challenge. It is not going to be any good for you. You are losing money on it. So what I would do, if you are doing these challenges in cash, every week, every month, whatever it is, gather it all together, total it all up and pay it into a savings account. The savings account you pay it into should ideally be the one that pays the highest amount of interest, okay? Now, this isn't fantastic right now. Hopefully things will get better, but even so, you should be aiming for the best possible rate you can get. Now, if you're already on one which is marginally different to the top rate, let's say you're getting 0.6% right now and the best one's 0.7%, then maybe it's not worth moving your cash. But if you're on 0.05%, then move it into the best one you can get right now. In fact, the best one you're most likely to looking for if you're doing one of these savings challenges, if you don't have a huge amount of money available to you right now, is probably the Virgin Money M Plus current account. This will earn you 2.02% on the first £1,000 you have saved in there. So you can put the money into that account every single day, week, month, whatever it is. That is a great place to earn some interest or the most interest you can as you build up this savings pot. Now, if you've already got that filled up, you've got one of those accounts or more than one of those accounts filled up with money, then just look for the best easy access account you can. Whatever it is, give you the best interest rate going. Here are some more videos on savings that might be useful to you. My name is Andy Webb. Thank you so much for watching.